Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of sociology. I'll probably not be making these videos every week, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. Everybody's got their syllabus printed and all of the due dates kind of integrated into their calendar already, and that you've already got a textbook. That's this one. Uh, we will be relying on reading a lot in this class. It's where you'll get most of the information for your exams. So make sure that you have that book and that you're reading chapter 1 this week. So you should already have your identity map in and your syllabus quiz. You should have feedback on the identity map already. Most people did really well, unless you used AI. You'll notice in the syllabus that we don't allow AI or plagiarism at all in this class. So you would have gotten a 0 for that. And there are a lot of really good reasons for that, some of which is that the whole point of this class is to develop critical thinking, but also that we criticize power dynamics and patterns of inequality in this class. And the way that AI is organized right now is really part of extractive capitalism, something that you'll define and analyze in this class. But it's essentially these large language models are relying on our intellectual property, extracting that, and it's really benefiting those in who are already have a lot of power and a lot of wealth. So we'll look at kind of mechanisms in this class that perpetuate patterns of inequality, but the way that AI works right now, it really contributes to that. So in addition to not really needing it and that it can kind of hinder the development of your critical thinking, it's also something that we just don't need to be complicit in this class. So for that reason, we don't allow it at all. And I won't use it in grading either. So you'll see feedback for your identity map. You might have a little bit of feedback regarding depth. Remember that I grade on content, um, depth, and also clarity. So depth is, are you asking those big three questions? Are you asking, what are the power dynamics? How are we interconnected? How is it more complicated than it first seems? But that you're also being really clear about what you mean, right? So you should be able to, at this point, you've already learned what social constructs are. We discussed that last week. So you should be able to make that connection. If you're saying in your identity map, hey, I want to be a nurse practitioner, you are defining what are the social constructs around that. How is a nurse practitioner different from a nurse? And is it actually different physically, or is it social constructs that make it different? Is it that we have decided as a society that these are the qualifications and the education required and all of that? Explain all of those social constructs, how it came to be, and how you, in your decision making, are fitting into those social constructs, maybe reinforcing them in some ways. So yes, you have choices, but there's always an interplay between agency and structure, which is what we're going to talk about this week and what you'll learn in chapter 1. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking for depth. You're explaining all of that. It's always more complicated than it first seems. If you are saying something really cliche, like, I choose my own destiny, right? Of course, that's true, but it's actually a lot more complicated than that. Do we really? Or are these all these social structures that we fit into as we're making the choices, the opportunities that we choose in life, and that kind of thing? Okay, so that's the feedback on your identity maps. This week, we're covering chapter 1. So make sure that you have in your notes by the end of the week, you're looking at the sociological imagination or the sociological perspective. You can define that. You're looking at some of the birth of sociology, some of the great thinkers like Auguste Comte, Harriet Martineau, Karl Marx, Max Weber. You have all of them in your notes. You've looked at some of the founding ideas and theories. You have a definition of functionalism, symbolic interactionism, and critical theory in your notes. You've looked at power and inequality, and you've kind of looked at the summary of terms and the key ideas in the very last portion of that chapter. Finally, I will leave you with this. I'll share my screen really quickly. Um, so that you can see here we're looking at our course overview. You've got those 3 questions in your notes: interconnectedness, power, and complexity that you're always asking about. You've got those 3 theories that we'll start to cover in chapter 1. And we're going to be starting to look at overarching social structure. How did we get to be in this situation in the world where we have certain countries and certain people that have a lot more power than others? There can be an assumption that this is inherent. It's not. There are particular turning points in history that we want to look at that explain things like, why are we speaking English right here? We shouldn't be. This is North America, right? And English is not an indigenous language here. Why are we speaking English? Because of colonialism, right? If your family is from Latin America and you are a Spanish speaker, why? Why are you speaking this European language? colonialism, right? We want to get into what were those turning points that kind of created the power dynamics of the world today. So we'll look at colonialism, neocolonialism, and then neoliberalism. So make sure that you have those three in your notes so that as you go through the book, you're kind of looking for definitions and looking for particularly two turning points in history, the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago and the industrial revolution, 1800s in Europe, 1900s in the United States, and looking at how those restructured society in terms of our power dynamics, but even our gender inequality, what we think of as traditional gender roles. When did those come about? All of those kinds of things. We're looking at sort of those changes in history. Okay, so as you start reading chapter one, keep that as sort of your overview in your notes and take notes on each of the sections. If you need anything at all this week, please reach out to me via email, rcarnes@kckcc.edu. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions at all. Have a great week, everyone. Next week, we'll just plan on you doing this on your own. You've got the schedule and the syllabus. Start in on chapter two, do the quiz, the writing assignment, and let me know if you have any questions. All right, have a great week.